I've always been the kind of person who trusted too easily. It's one of those traits people say is nice, but usually ends with you getting burned. At the time, though, I didn't think twice about saying yes when my childhood friend Eric offered me a place to stay. I had just gone through a nasty breakup and needed to get away from the city, from everything. Eric lived a few hours out in a quiet suburban town. Big yard, no neighbors nearby, and one of those old 70s style houses with a huge basement. When he texted, "Come crash here, man. Stay as long as you want," I packed my stuff that night. At first, it was exactly what I needed. Peaceful mornings, strong coffee, silence. We hadn't talked much since high school, but being around Eric again felt natural. He hadn't changed, still sarcastic, still obsessed with horror movies, still the same guy who'd sneak beers into school dances. We'd stay up late watching old slasher films, just like when we were kids. But something felt off. Not with him exactly, but with the house. More specifically, the basement. It wasn't just that it was dark or cold. There was a smell, not strong but stale, like something sealed up for a long time. The kind of smell you only notice when it's dead quiet and you're alone. Eric had a padlock on one of the basement doors, and I figured it was just for storage, maybe his dad's old tools. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, I'd hear sounds coming from down there, scraping, like metal on concrete. I told myself it was the furnace. At first, being around Eric felt like slipping into an old hoodie, familiar, broken and comforting. He wasn't just offering me a couch. He was offering me peace, a safe space after everything fell apart. He didn't ask too many questions about the breakup, which I appreciated. He'd just say stuff like, "You're better off, man," and change the subject to whatever movie we were watching. It felt easy, almost too easy. We spent most days just talking about work, old memories, dumb high school drama. He'd tell me stories about the people in town, his odd neighbors, this guy at the grocery store who always wore one glove. Eric had a way of making everything sound just slightly offbeat, like he was seeing a weirder version of the world than the rest of us. There were moments, though, where something didn't quite sit right. One night, we were watching a horror film, and a scene came up where someone was locked in a room. Eric chuckled, not like it was funny, but like he recognized it, like it was familiar. I gave him a look, and he just shrugged. "People like to be trapped sometimes," he said. "Take the pressure off." I laughed it off, but it stuck with me. Then there were the questions. Casual at first, harmless even. Do you ever feel like disappearing? What would you do if no one knew where you were? I'd shrug, joke about needing a vacation from life, but something about the way he watched me when I answered, like he was studying my reaction. I chalked it up to him being quirky, maybe a little too into his horror fascination. He'd always been that way, even back then, always pushing buttons just to see what would happen. Looking back now, maybe I should have seen it, but at the time, it felt like home. It started with the smell. I was down in the basement, grabbing an extension cord from one of the old storage bins. The place always had that damp, mildew scent, but this time it was different, sharper, almost metallic. I followed it, step by cautious step. The scent got stronger the closer I got to the far corner, the part of the basement Eric never touched. That's when I noticed it, a draft. Cold air slipping through the cracks of an old wooden panel. At first, I thought it was just part of the wall, but something about it didn't match, the grain, the way it sat against the concrete. I tapped it lightly. Hollow. There was a hidden door. It wasn't locked, just jammed slightly, like it hadn't been opened in a while. My hands trembled as I pulled it open. Behind it was a narrow room. Unfinished concrete. No windows. One bare light bulb swaying above. And on the floor a thin, stained mattress. A rusted bucket. Zip ties. A roll of duct tape. A small camera pointed at the mattress. I froze. There were scratch marks on the walls. Long, frantic gouges like someone had tried and failed to claw their way out. My throat tightened. My legs felt like they might give out beneath me. I backed out slowly, heart pounding in my ears, barely remembering to shut the panel behind me. When I turned, Eric was standing at the top of the basement stairs, just watching. He didn't say anything, didn't ask why I was down there, just stared, eyes cold, unreadable. Back upstairs, I tried to play it off. My voice cracked as I mumbled something about needing fresh air. Eric didn't follow me outside. He just sat down on the couch, as calm as ever. But when I got to my room to pack a bag, something was waiting for me. On the bed, a photo. It was a printed image of me, sleeping. It had been taken from inside the room, the hidden one, from behind the panel. That's when I realized I hadn't just stumbled across something I wasn't supposed to see. I was already part of my room, every light on, clutching the photo like it might protect me. Every sound made me flinch. The creak of the floorboards, the groan of the pipes. My breath caught with each one, but nothing was louder than the silence outside my door. Around 4 a.m., I made up my mind. I was leaving now, before he woke up. I packed quietly, trying not to think about the hidden room, the camera, or the scratches in the wall. As I opened the door, I nearly screamed. Eric was standing at the end of the hallway. He looked tired, pale, but his eyes were wide, locked on mine. And in his hand, he was holding something, a roll of duct tape. Neither of us spoke. The hallway felt too small, like the walls were closing in. My heart was thundering, so loud I couldn't hear anything else. Then I ran, down the stairs, through the living room. I heard his footsteps behind me, fast, heavy, gaining. I fumbled with the front door, hands shaking, but the lock wouldn't budge. It was one of those deadbolts you had to twist just right. Behind me, I heard Eric growl, "Stop, just stop." I didn't. I turned, grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, and threw it. It hit the wall, shattering. That split second was enough. I yanked the door open and sprinted into the night. Cold air slapped my face. My lungs burned. I didn't look back until I reached the edge of the street. The house stood in the dark, silent. He hadn't followed. Or maybe he didn't need to, because somewhere in that house there was footage of me, of others, maybe worse, and he knew it. It's been 7 months. I filed an anonymous report. I told them everything, the basement, the room, the photo. I gave the address, but I never followed up. I didn't want to know what they found, or if they found anything at all. Sometimes I convince myself I imagined it, that maybe it was some twisted art project, a leftover set from one of Eric's weird video experiments. But then I remember the photo, me, asleep, unaware, taken from inside the walls. I still don't know how long he was watching me. The worst part, I trusted him. After everything, the breakup, the move, the collapse of my life, he was the one person who made me feel safe again. And he used that. I don't let people close anymore. I double lock my doors. I cover my laptop camera. I sleep with the lights on. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, when the house is still, I swear I can hear it. That soft, metallic scrape, like a camera adjusting its focus. When I moved into that old house, I thought I was lucky. I'd just gotten out of college, broke and desperate for somewhere cheap but safe. The listing was almost too good to be true. A fully furnished one-bedroom rental in a quiet neighborhood, utilities included. It was an older house, a little creaky, but it had charm. The kind of place you could write a novel in. The landlord, Mr. Dreyfus, lived upstairs. 70s, polite, a little stiff, but seemed like a decent guy. He told me, "You'll have the whole lower floor to yourself. Just one thing, don't use the basement." I asked why. He gave this awkward half-smile and said, "Mold. Very bad mold. Dangerous to breathe in." That was fine with me. I had no interest in basements. The first few weeks were peaceful. I was working remotely, trying to save money, and spending evenings drinking tea on the porch. I didn't even think about the basement until the thumping started. Soft, rhythmic thumps, always around 2 or 3 a.m. At first, I thought it was plumbing, or maybe the old man getting up to use the bathroom. But it wasn't coming from upstairs. It was coming from beneath me. I didn't want to seem paranoid, so I didn't say anything at first. Mr. Dreyfus would knock on my door every Sunday afternoon to check in. Always punctual, always polite. He'd ask if I needed anything, offered to help carry groceries more than once. One time, he even baked me banana bread. It reminded me of my grandfather, honestly. The man was slow-moving, soft-spoken, but thoughtful. He wore the same brown cardigan every day. always carried a handkerchief. He seemed lonely more than anything, but certain things stuck out. He never invited me upstairs. Not once. He said the upstairs kitchen was under renovation for months, and anytime I asked about the noises at night, he'd just smile and say, "Old houses have voices." Once, I joked that maybe the mold in the basement was alive. He didn't laugh. In fact, he got very still and said, "The basement is sealed for a reason. It's not safe." That should have been a red flag, but I was tired, overworked, and trying to believe I was finally in a stable place. I ignored it until one night when I came home late from a friend's place, and I saw the light, a faint orange glow spilling out from under the basement door. I crept closer. I could hear something, not thumping this time. A voice, faint and strained, almost like humming. Not cheerful, more like someone humming to keep themselves from falling apart. I knocked on the landlord's door, heart racing. No answer. But as soon as I turned back toward the basement, the light was gone. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that light. I heard the sound of that humming. Something was down there, or someone, and I needed to know what. The next morning, I confronted Dreyfus. I saw a light coming from the basement. I said, "Someone's down there, aren't they?" He stared at me for a long time, then said calmly, "You're under a lot of stress. Maybe you imagined it." I insisted I hadn't. I even threatened to report it. That's when he changed. His face hardened. The warmth drained out of him. He stepped closer and said, "The basement isn't your concern. You signed a lease. Stick to your floor." That night, I waited until I heard him snoring upstairs. Then I picked a lock. The basement door groaned open. The air hit me immediately, not moldy, but damp and earthy, like wet stone. I descended the stairs, one trembling step at a time. It was almost pitch black, except for a faint flicker coming from around a corner. I followed it, and I saw her. A woman, thin, pale, maybe in her 30s, sitting on a dirty mattress. Her hair was long and tangled. She looked up at me with these wide, hollow eyes. When she spoke, her voice cracked. "He keeps me here," she said. "Says I need time to learn obedience." I nearly threw up. There were chains on the wall, a small camera pointed at the mattress, and notebooks, dozens of them, stacked neatly. I picked one up. It was filled with rules, handwritten in neat, obsessive script. Rule number 1, stay silent until spoken to. Rule number 12, obey and earn light. Rule number 29, never lie. That's when they disappear. My hand shook. I told her I was calling the police. She grabbed my wrist. "No, if he finds out you saw me, he'll make you disappear too." That's when I heard the creak. Someone had come downstairs. I killed the flashlight and pressed myself into the shadows. The woman curled into herself, silent. She had done this before. Footsteps echoed down the stairs, slow, deliberate, patient. Mr. Dreyfus didn't call out. He didn't ask questions. He just moved. I peeked around the corner. He was holding something, a cloth, a bottle, chloroform. He walked right past me, toward the woman. He knelt beside her, whispered something I couldn't hear. I didn't think so. I just acted. I grabbed one of the thick notebooks and hurled it across the room. It slammed into the far wall with a loud thud. Dreyfus jumped and turned. That gave me enough time. I lunged toward the stairs. He shouted something, a deep, guttural bark of rage. I didn't look back. I ran harder than I ever had. My shoulders smashed the basement door open, and I kept running. Out of the house, down the street, barefoot and breathless. A neighbor saw me and called 911. The police raided the house that night. They found her, and 2 others, all alive. Dreyfus was arrested. Turns out he had been reported years ago. Abuse allegations, a missing tenant, but nothing stuck. He moved cities, changed his name. He was never a landlord. He didn't even own the house. He'd just been staying there, collecting people. I still live with the guilt of not acting sooner. The woman, her name was Mary Ann, spent 11 months in that basement. The others, even longer. They all survived, but none of them are really okay. I visit Mary Ann sometimes. She's trying to rebuild, but certain things still scare her. Locked doors, orange light, humming. She says he used to hum lullabies right before taking someone away. I wonder sometimes what would have happened if I'd kept ignoring the signs, if I just put in headphones, trusted the surface of things. The truth is, evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like banana bread and warm smiles, quiet hallways, old men in cardigans. Sometimes the scariest thing is how normal it all felt until it didn't. Now, when I rent, I ask about the basement. If they hesitate, I don't move in. My brother Josh and I were close growing up. Not in the way people pretend, but actually close. Like we had the same nightmares. We'd sleep in the same room during storms. He was my best friend. But things changed after college. He moved away, got into some startup scene, and kind of faded out. We talked maybe once every few months, but that was it. So when he called me out of the blue and asked if he could crash at my place for a while, I said yes without even asking why. He showed up late at night with nothing but a backpack. No suitcase. No explanation. Just hugged me tightly and said, "You're saving my life, man." I thought it was just a bad breakup or some burnout stuff. I didn't push. We fell back into rhythm fast, late night takeout, video games, dumb jokes from when we were kids. It felt good having him around again. Then, on the fourth day, he said he needed to use the basement, just for a bit, to clear his head. I didn't think much of it, until he locked the door behind him. The first few hours, I figured he just needed space. We all have weird ways of coping. I texted him to check in, and he replied, "All good, just resting." But by the second day, I started to worry. He wasn't answering anymore. I'd knock, and he'd say, "I'm fine," through the door, but his voice was hoarse, like he hadn't slept or eaten. I slid a sandwich under the door, and it came back untouched. The only thing he asked for was water. I told myself he was meditating, maybe detoxing. I even Googled stuff like voluntary isolation and sensory deprivation healing. I wanted to believe it was something spiritual, but then I noticed a few strange things. He had taken the smoke detector down before going in, unscrewed it completely. Why? He also unplugged the basement freezer and pulled the light bulbs out of the sockets. When I asked him why he needed it dark, he said, "It's easier to listen when it's quiet." Listen to what? That's when I checked his backpack. I felt guilty, but I was scared. Inside were three things: a small journal, a pack of chalk, and a printed photo. The photo was of our childhood basement, the one from our old house, the one our parents sold after Dad died. I turned it over. In Josh's handwriting, it said, "It's not the same basement, but it knows me." That night, I sat by the door and asked him, "Josh, what's going on? You're scaring me." No answer. Is this about Dad? Is something happening to you? Still nothing. I started hearing things then, soft murmurs, like whispering, but low and fast, impossible to make out. I pressed my ear to the door. It stopped immediately. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of scraping, not on the floor, but on the walls. Repeated, slow dragging, like fingernails across concrete. I called out to him, but no response. I ran to the breaker box and flipped the lights on for the basement, hoping it would snap him out of whatever state he was in. What I saw through the basement window chilled me to my core. He had written symbols across the walls, circles, X's, a spiral over and over again, in thick chalk lines that went from floor to ceiling. He stood in the middle of them, facing away from me, shirtless, his back covered in scratches, self-inflicted or otherwise. I couldn't tell. He didn't blink, didn't turn around. I shouted his name. He finally moved slowly, just to reach down and pick up a piece of chalk. Then, on the wall in front of him, he wrote, "It remembers the body." I called 911. I didn't know what else to do. When they got there, they had to break the door open. Josh didn't resist, didn't speak. He just let them take him. He smiled at me as they dragged him out, eyes wild and glassy. Before they left, I went into the basement. The air was thick, hot, damp, wrong. Every step echoed like I was walking on hollow ground. On the far wall, written in chalk, in perfect handwriting, it just wanted someone to come back. Josh was placed under psychiatric evaluation. I visited him a few days later. He barely spoke, just stared at the wall. He looked different, like something inside him had been peeled away. I brought up the writing, the symbols, the photo, trying to understand. He just whispered. I thought if I opened it again, maybe I could trade places. Maybe it will forget what happened to Dad. What are you talking about? I asked. He finally looked at me. His voice cracked. He didn't die in his sleep. He died in the basement. Mom lied. That night, I went digging through old family storage boxes, police reports, documents, and he was right. Dad died of blunt force trauma, found at the bottom of the basement stairs. Case closed as an accident, slipped on the steps. But Josh had always said he saw something down there. No one believed him. He was 7. I started to wonder, did he go into my basement to reconnect? Or to finish something? Or was he never alone down there? 2 nights later, I heard movement in the basement again. I told myself it was in my head, just residual trauma. But when I went to check, the symbols were gone. All of them. Clean walls. No chalk. No dust. Nothing. Except one small word scratched into the underside of the stairwell, like a final message. Remember, Josh is still under observation. They diagnosed him with dissociative psychosis, tied to unresolved trauma. Maybe that's true, but something in me can't let go of the feeling that he didn't just break. He opened something, or remembered something he was never supposed to. And now I can't stop remembering too. It's not the visions or the words. It's the feeling, the pull toward the basement. Like gravity. Like it wants me there next. Like it's waiting for me to come down, sit in that silence, and listen. I haven't rented out the place since. I can't bring myself to sell it either. I leave the basement door locked. But sometimes, late at night, I wake up. Not to noise, but to silence. Heavy silence. The kind that feels like breath being held just beneath your feet. And once, just once, I swear I heard my brother's voice. Not in the house. Not in the room. From beneath the floorboards. And it said, "Don't leave me here alone."